Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. On today's episode, I will target catfish from the bank of Lake Berryessa. Today, however, it is early winter, and during this time of year, it is crucial and critical that an angler understand catfish behavior to target these fish successfully. I am extremely blessed that I am here in Northern California where our water never truly freezes or ice over. Our water temperature never truly get cold and dip below 40 degrees. Therefore, I can always bet on the fact that I will have some catfish in the shallow water and catfish in deep water this time of year. However, not all areas will be created equal because these fish will relate closely to holes that they'll spend just like black bass year in and year out based on the water level and fluctuation. So I'm going to demonstrate on this little image of how I choose an area to target. An easy area for the bank angler to target this time of year are often the mouths of many creek channels. This mouth is adjacent to a bridge which will have some natural structure and a channel will run on one side of the bridge. I will fish on this side where the channel runs through where there is a flat on the opposite side. This is a great area for a bank angler to target channel catfish in the winter. The bait of choice I like to use this time of year is shrimp. The reason I like to use shrimp this time of year instead of oily bait fish is because these winter channel catfish are often really lethargic. I will be fishing a light casting setup today on my Whisker Seeker Luke Nichols Catfish and Carp Series rod, and I will be fishing a basic fish finder rig. Nothing special today because I know the water is cold, so many of these fish will relate very close to the bottom. Now back to the reason why I like to use shrimp this time of year instead of an oily bait fish. In cold water, oily fish such as sardines or anchovies or even mackerels will disperse very little scent, whereas the soft baits like shrimp will often hold on to its scent a lot much better, and I find that catfish will naturally, and during this time of year when it is cold, pick up and hold on to soft bait far longer than they do to natural bait. When baiting up with shrimp, I prefer to use half of the shrimp instead of the whole shrimp. Because the water is cold, these fish are lethargic, and I have caught many fish, big fish, on very little pieces of bait. These fish are still feeding, but at a much slower rate than they would during the spring or summer. The reality of winter catfish fishing is often characterized with very slow bites. More often than not, I will pick up 2 to 3 bites per day, sometimes 4 to 5 from the bank if I'm extremely lucky if the water temperature and barometric pressure is good. However, the fishes I will pick up during this time of year will tend to be the bigger fishes. Sometimes I'll pick up some cookie cutter channel catfish, but more times than not, the biggest catfishes can be caught during this time of year. A catfish still needs to feed to maintain its metabolism despite it being cold. These fish don't just magically die off and reappear in the spring and summer. They still need to eat just like any other fish. The rod on the right got bit. I find that in the winter time, I will let the rod just go off a little longer before picking it up and reeling. I am using circle hook for the ease of catch and release, and I know that this fish is hooked itself. All I did was afterward go over and pick up the rod and start reeling. I knew that this wasn't a big fish, but another little pan-sized fryer catfish. I am not retaining any fish today, and with this cold water, these pan-sized fish often will not fight very hard. The water is cold, so they will not roll or move a whole lot. When the weather temperature is cold and miserable like today, I welcome all bites. I am not picky whether I catch a 1-pound channel catfish or a 25-pound channel catfish. The biggest mistake a bank angler makes this time of year is often not fishing in an area where there are catfish. An angler can find these kind of areas by simply getting a topographic map online or downloading the apps such as Navionics. This is a small channel catfish, not big by any metric or standard, but I'll take what I can get, especially for a cold, wet day like this. Thanks for playing, little guy. Off you go. Today's weather temperature is rather erratic. It is going to be cold and foggy in the morning, and it'll slowly dissipate by afternoon and evening. So I'm going to wait it out on the top of this hole before going to the flat when the sun gets up. The reason I'm fishing at the bottom of the hole before going to the flat is because I am waiting for the sun to get up to warm the flat a little bit. The rod on the right got bit, and I knew that this was probably going to be a great fish. because only the bigger fish will strike like this during the colder month. I ended up picking the rod. I knew right away that I've gotten myself into a big fish. This is the kind of fish that an angler will be rewarded with in the winter months if they brave out this weather. I might not get a lot of bites during the winter time, but I know I can often catch some of my biggest catfish any time of the year during the colder weather. The reason I believe I can catch the biggest catfish of the year during the colder weather periods is because during the colder weather period, most boaters are off the water and many guides have moved on to other venues to target other species. Therefore, these fish receive little to no pressure, and I can often pick apart the biggest fishes, whereas in the summer or early spring, I will tend to catch a lot of pan-sized channel catfish, or teeners. This time of year the water temperatures are cold, so therefore these catfish will tend not to roll as much as they do in the early spring or summer periods. These fish will still fight hard, but nowhere near as hard as they would during the warm weather periods. I see the fish, it is slowly coming up from the depths. This is a big fish, particularly for the lakes around my areas or even the rivers. This is considered a really big fish for a channel catfish. He finally woke up and decided he wanted to fight now, but I know that I got him. Even though I don't have the net with me today, he is big enough that I can actually kill him, just like how I would with a salmon or a steelhead. An easy method to land a fish, especially a big channel catfish, when a net is not present, is to tail the fish. As soon as I get it on the bank, I will grab it just right below its adipose fin, and now the fish is subdued. A lot of folks would ask me how come I don't use a J-style hook or an octopus hook this time of year for when I'm fishing channel catfish. But I don't like to use an octopus style hook because I tend to fish catch and release, so therefore I will always opt for a circle hook whenever I can. I will demonstrate that the circle hook, despite using a much smaller size today, can indeed still hook these channel catfish in the corner of the mouth. This catfish was hooked in the whisker, and it took me a minute to get this circle hook off, but nonetheless, it still caught him. So it goes to show that you don't exactly need these giant gargantuan saltwater hook. I caught him with this little 3/0 size hook, and now I will show the fish to you guys. This is a very big channel catfish. Well over 15 pounds, but nowhere near 20 pounds. He is still a wonderful fish, and I am glad I caught him today. So I'll show him to you guys for a bit longer before returning him back to the lake. Thank you for playing, buddy, in this cold, miserable weather. Rest up a bit, and off you go back. And I'll see you maybe again next spring or summer. As the fog dissipates into the later afternoon, I will now change area and try and target the flat. Here in Northern California, our water temperatures will never truly be as cold as those guys fishing out on the East Coast or in the Midwest, where their water temperatures are often frozen and dipped well below the 30s. So therefore I know that there will always be some channel catfish as soon as the sun comes up, roaming the flats in roughly about 8 to 10 feet of water. I never dismiss these flat areas because as long as there's a little bit of sunlight later on during the later afternoon or evening, some fish will roam these flats, despite the water temperature being cold. My wintertime tactics when targeting channel catfish will normally start with in the early mornings or mid-morning at the bottom end of the hole where it is deeper. Then afterwards, when the sun comes out around the afternoon or later into the evening, I will then go forward and target the flat on the other half of the channel. That way I can present my bait to as many catfish as possible that are feeding. More times than not in the winter time, I will just warm and prepare for the long wait. There will not be a lot of bites this time of year, but more often than not I can catch some of the biggest catfish during this time of year. The rod on the left therefore paid off, and I got the most extreme violent bite I've gotten in 2024. The rod nearly went in the water, and somehow I managed to get this fish. Despite the water temperatures being cold, this fish actually pulled quite a bit of drag, and I knew right away that this was going to be a wintertime giant. This fish fought very well despite the water being cold. This time of year can be extremely rewarding. for the anglers who are willing to figure out their wintertime patterns and brave out the cold weather. Yes, these catfish will still continue to feed despite the cold weather, however they'll just feed a whole lot less and will tend to be a lot more lethargic, so therefore, hopefully today's episode demonstrates that the wintertime can actually be a great time to channel catfish fish or go catfish fishing in general if your water temperatures are still moderately warm and have not iced over. And if you're an antisocial angler, then this time of year is perfect for you guys. There are virtually no boats on the water with the golden mussel closure, and there are hardly any other anglers on the lake because no angler would like to sit out in the cold or rain. So I highly recommend this kind of fishing if you are an antisocial angler because you'll get all the water to yourself. Another way to land a big channel catfish or catfish in general is to grab it in the lower jaw line. It'll give you a bite, but I find that it is a psychological factor and the bite often don't hurt that much. This is a big catfish, well above 20 pounds. It is a male because I could tell by its darker color and its larger head. It is an old warrior, so I will show him to you guys and I will let him go. Thanks for playing, big guy. Rest up a bit and off you go. Overall, it was just a great day to be back out on the waters. I didn't catch many fishes today or get many bites, but it was just great to be out on the water. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, tight lines, y'all.